Hey there, Taylor Elwood here, and today I wanted to talk a bit about how to make sure that you are present in the moment instead of getting caught up in fantasy. And I share this with you because I would have to say that one of the mistakes that I made in the last couple of years when I look at things that kind of didn't work out the way that I hoped they would is that there would be times where I'd get really caught up in the fantasy of something and I wouldn't necessarily be present with what was really happening around me, and I wasn't necessarily paying attention to all the stuff that I needed to be paying attention to. And hey, it happens to all of us. It's easy. It's an easy thing to have happen. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we want that we forget to really look at where we're at and whether or not what we want is actually happening for us until, well, suddenly we fall. Boom! And that's definitely what happened to me. I mean, I basically had a rough and tumble fall last year, and it needed to happen because I was so caught up in this idea, this vision of what I wanted to have happen. But what I wasn't doing was paying attention to being present in the moment. The thing is that in a lot of times I think that as magicians, it's very easy for us to get caught up in the fantasy, if you will, of a result. I mean, after all, if we're doing magic, we're doing it in order to accomplish a specific result, in order to change something, in order to make something happen. It's no easy thing. It takes a lot of work to turn a result into a reality. And so, of course, to some degree, you have to be willing to have some imagination, to dream, to visualize, to go to that place of fantasy and allow it to be something that speaks to you. At the same time, I think that when we get too caught up in that, what we forget is the importance of really paying attention to what is going on around us and how to use that or be aware of it or factor it in. The reality of a moment can have a lot of messages for us. It can provide us some crucial feedback and information, and if we're missing out on it by not being present with it, then what we open ourselves up to is delusion. We go down the wrong route. We end up going to a place where we don't want to go. And I would say that for me, that definitely happened. I was so caught up in the fantasy of something that I wasn't seeing the reality for what it was. And so as a result, I wasn't paying attention to that environment and working with it. Instead, I ended up really ultimately having it work against me because there were things I wasn't paying attention to. I wasn't attending to, that I wasn't factoring in with everything that I was trying to accomplish. So how do we be present? Well, being present in the moment really actually involves doing something very hard. It means being present with ourselves and what we're feeling at the time. It means being present with our fears. It means being present with our anxiety. It means being present with things that we may not like to face about ourselves. Because let's face it, when you get caught up in a fantasy, usually that fantasy is an escape from whatever it is that you're dealing with. It also means being present in the moment also means just being attuned to, the messages that are coming into you in various forms. There's always information coming in, but if you're selective about that information, if you're selective about what you're receiving, then you can miss out on it, and then it can become a big surprise when in fact it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that to happen. Well, there you go, it happened. So I tell you that because I think a lot of times people get super caught up in their own fantasy, their own hype, their own whatever else, and they don't pay attention to the environmental messages. I know in my case that I wasn't really paying attention to some environmental messages that were coming my way in regards to how I was behaving, the things that I was doing, and how it was affecting other people. until after the fact, until it was really too late. And then, of course, it's like, oh, okay, I ended up making a fool of myself, learning some hard lessons, changed things since then, and I think that one of the things that I've really had to work on in the last few months especially is just really being present with my own feelings of fear and anxiety and awareness of how, I don't know, awareness of how I trip myself up, certainly, but also awareness of just how fragile in some ways I've had to recognize myself as being, and how to accept that and work with it, and in fact use that to become something that helps me become stronger. When you are present with your fears, it's not a fun ride because suddenly you are really facing who you are. You're seeing the things about yourself that you don't like. You're seeing the things about yourself that you may have been trying to avoid, and that's certainly been an experience that I've had in this past year, and particularly in the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months. You know, it's been really coming to see some aspects of myself that I was avoiding. And ironically enough, in some ways I was acting those aspects out. And I didn't even realize it at the time. And that can be a clue in and of itself, and that's one of the reasons why we want to be present, because then suddenly we are forced to be, when we're present, we are forced to be accountable to ourselves and accountable to others for how and who we are and how we show up. And I think that's an important thing to bear in mind, that when you're doing anything, you ultimately have to be accountable to yourself, but you also have to be accountable to other people. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's tough. And sometimes it can involve facing some really hard experiences. So share that with you, because becoming present with myself and becoming present with the things that have been hard to face, it's really helped me to see just how important it is. And what I really recommend for that is that, you certainly you take up some type of meditation practice, but really ultimately that you just, if you feel something come up, that you accept it and acknowledge it and you're present with it. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it important? Definitely. You want to make sure that you make that time and effort to be present with yourself, to work through whatever's coming up, to be honest with yourself, and be honest with others too, of course, if it's warranted, but certainly with yourself in terms of just facing whatever it is you need to face. I know in my own case, coming face to face with my fears has ultimately helped me to become a lot more grounded, to look at the last few years from a different perspective, and to see definitely where I fell short, where things went wrong, and how that's on me. But it's also helped me come to a deeper place within myself in terms of just the work that I'm doing now, and an acceptance of what's really important, instead of letting myself be distracted. And part of that has just been clearing away the fantasy to focus on the reality. And so I just share that with you because sometimes that's what we got to do. Anyway, take care, watch this video, hope it helps you, and have a wonderful day/evening or whenever you're watching this. Take care.